Okay, had a little technological mishap there. It told me my space was full, so I had to delete some stuff, which I just did. So, okay, picking up where I left off. So, those people would have you just do these mechanical rote functions and not experience anything when it comes to connecting with God and hearing from God, communicating. So, I mean, that's wrong. So, one as well as the other extreme on that is wrong. And these things are part of the relationship, but they need to be done in a biblical way. So that's all I wanted to highlight regarding Peter's vision and how he came to have it. I mean, God would get through to him anyway, but it just so happened he was kind of in a state of fasting and it was kind of an accident. But anyway, so that's what was happening there. And so, okay, so we see that the trance. All right. And then now to get to the vision here. So he saw heaven opened and an object like a great sheet bound at the four corners descending to him. So it just was sort of like this thing was lowered to him and let down to the earth. In it were all kinds of four-footed animals of the earth, wild beasts, creeping things, and birds of the air. And a voice came to him, Rise, Peter, kill and eat. So, okay, but we get more information here. But Peter said, Not so, Lord, for I have never eaten anything common or unclean. And what that's about is, you know, they had the rules for a kosher diet in the Old Testament, and they were obviously still doing this. And even though, I mean, we're not under the law now, but this was a time they were transitioning, and there's no rule about that. I mean, you can eat this way or not. Now they get so intense about these things, but there's grace. There's grace to eat kosher, and there's grace to not eat kosher. So it's not about that. That's it. I mean, and it was in there for health reasons. And this is actually another thing. It's scientifically proven. I mean, science actually backs up the Bible, it doesn't contradict it when you really look into it. But take this, like all the animals that were considered unclean, unkosher, non kosher, that they weren't supposed to eat, there was a health problem with eating them. The shellfish, all that kind of stuff, the pork, whatever it was, they weren't supposed to eat. It was a health risk. God just wanted them to be healthy, so He had certain animals that were kosher, like clean for them to eat. And so, I mean, it's really about health. And I mean, I'm a health nut, so I actually do that just for health reasons. It has nothing to do with salvation. We're not saved by keeping the law. But it's just, I thought, well, it's common sense to be healthy, so I wanted to do that at least. But okay, so, but that's what the background is on that. So Peter was very adamant about it. He never ate anything that's unkosher. Why, what? So anyway, and now a voice spoke to him again the second time. What God has cleansed, you must not call common. This was done 3 times, and the object was taken up into heaven again. So, it turned out this really, in this case, wasn't about even food. It wasn't like, okay, God's telling him now eat whatever or don't eat whatever. It wasn't about food, eating kosher or not eating kosher and all that. This was about Gentiles. Okay, they had that whole thing in the culture. So God was opening up to them the whole Gentile world. And he kind of broke it to them slowly, and this was one of the things. He gave Peter a vision so he would see it's okay to go to the Gentiles. And that's exactly what happens with Cornelius. That's why God gave him this vision, to prepare him for the whole thing that's going to happen with Cornelius. So that's how this all ties in together. So anyway, it's about that. So he got the message pretty quick. So here, moving on. Now, while Peter wondered within himself what this vision which he had seen meant, behold, the men who had been sent from Cornelius had made inquiry for Simon's house and stood before the gate. And they called and asked whether Simon, whose surname was Peter, was lodging there. While Peter thought about the vision, the Spirit said to him, Behold, 3 men are seeking you. Arise, therefore, go down and go with them, doubting nothing, for I have sent them. Okay, so here, he'll get it real soon. It didn't dawn on him yet, but here we see all this. Another point is we see the ongoing communication between God and his people. So it's totally happening. It's a happening thing. Okay, so now, so we see that happening here. And then Peter went down to the men who had been sent to him from Cornelius and said, Yes, I am he whom you seek. For what reason have you come? And they said, Cornelius the centurion, a just man, one who fears God and has a good reputation among all the nation of the Jews, was divinely instructed by a holy angel to summon you to his house and to hear words from you. Then he invited them in and lodged them. On the next day, Peter went away with them, and some brethren from Joppa accompanied him. Okay, so now just to go over that again. So he was wondering about the vision, and then the men sent from Cornelius came to his house, stood at the gate, and they asked for Peter. He was still thinking about the vision, and then God just kind of taps him on the shoulder. Hey, 3 men are here looking for you. So arise and go down and go with them. Don't doubt anything. I sent them. Okay. And so, okay, he goes and says, okay, yeah, I'm Peter, basically. What brings you here, and then it goes on. They kind of introduce, sorry about the background noise. Anyway, so they said, they basically introduced Cornelius. Cornelius, he's a centurion, a just man, one who fears God. He has a good reputation among all the nation of the Jews. Okay, and he was divinely instructed by a holy angel to summon you to his house and to hear words from you. Then he invited them in and lodged them. So you can tell they really wanted to make sure he received Cornelius. And it's all true, But anyway, and then he invited them in and lodged with them. And it doesn't look like it from the text. You wouldn't know it otherwise. Like, oh yeah, sure, cool. He just housed them, let them, sleep on the couch, whatever. But in that culture, this was a milestone. I mean, the Jews and Gentiles, it was like there was a wall between them. The Jews did not receive the Gentiles. They did look upon them as unclean. And, they didn't have all those insights and special rules and laws, but here was Cornelius doing everything he could do. And, so that's a different story, of course. And so, but for Peter to embrace this whole world of the door being open to the Gentiles, even in this sense so far, was a milestone. This was a big deal. So, again, it's just one little sentence, but it's a big deal. Okay, so this is how it's unfolding with the church. Okay, on the next day, Peter went away with them, and some brethren from Joppa accompanied him. So him and some buddies went with these guys over to where Cornelius was. Okay, so now, here we go. Peter meets Cornelius. Okay. And the following day, they entered Caesarea. Now Cornelius was waiting for them and had called together his relatives and close friends. So you could see he was eager. They were eager. As Peter was coming in, Cornelius met him and fell down at his feet and worshipped him. And okay, he didn't know any better, so we'll give the guy a break. Okay. But Peter lifted him up, saying, "Stand up, I myself am also a man." And as he talked with him, he went in and found many who had come together. Then he said to them, and then he'll go into that, I'll get to that, but I just want to highlight this. See, so Peter didn't allow anybody to bow down to him, and that is correct. We're not to bow down to any man, and kiss their feet, you name it. We're not supposed to do that. That's only for God. We are only supposed to do that to God. We don't bow down before anybody else but God. Okay, we don't fall all over anybody because it is a form of worship, and Peter rejected it. Okay, I want to emphasize that. And all of them rejected that. And any of the true apostles would have rejected it. That's the right response, is reject that. That goes to redirect them to God. Give that to God. That's for him, not for me. Okay, so we know, I got to highlight that. And you guys, we know what we mean, right? So, yeah, okay. Okay, so now he jumps into this. Then he said to them, "You know how unlawful it is for a Jewish man to keep company with or go to one of another nation. But God has shown me that I should not call any man common or unclean. Therefore, I came without objection as soon as I was sent for. I asked then, for what reason have you sent for me?" So, stopping here, we see he goes into that background, that cultural background, what a big deal that was. They didn't receive them, they didn't eat with them, nothing. And so now he's saying God showed him, that's what that vision was about, the common or unclean. And and it depends on the person, but in Cornelius's case, he was to be received. So they were all seeking God. They were open to God. They were looking for this. They wanted to hear whatever had to be said. And so that'll happen now. Okay, so he says he came without objecting. He didn't hesitate. He just went. And now, why have you sent for me? Verse 30. So Cornelius said, 4 days ago I was fasting until this hour, and at the 9th hour I prayed in my house, and behold, a man stood before me in bright clothing and said, Cornelius, your prayer has been heard, and your alms are remembered in the sight of God. Send therefore to Joppa and call Simon here, whose surname is Peter. He is lodging in the house of Simon, a tanner by the sea. When he comes, he will speak to you. So I sent to you immediately, and you have done well to come. And now, therefore, we are all present before God to hear all the things commanded you by God. Okay, so Cornelius tells him what happened. He was fasting, praying, and then a man stood before him. That was the angel, and said, Cornelius, your prayer has been heard. So God heard his prayer, and your alms are remembered in the sight of God. So he was doing good things, and God recognized that. Okay. Send therefore to Joppa, in other words, call for Peter, and he's that this and that place. Okay. Then when he comes, he will speak to you. So, and that's going to be the gospel. So he says, so I sent to you immediately, and you have done well to come. Now, therefore, we are all present before God to hear all the things commanded you by God. So they are eager and they're ready. They're open, they're seeking. So here it goes on, verse 34. Then Peter opened his mouth and said, in truth, I perceive that God shows no partiality. But in every nation, whoever fears him and works righteousness is accepted by him. The word which God sent to the children of Israel, preaching peace through Jesus Christ, he is Lord of all, that word you know, which was proclaimed throughout all Judea, and began from Galilee after the baptism which John preached, how God anointed Jesus of Nazareth with the Holy Spirit and with power, who went about doing good and healing all who were oppressed by the devil, for God was with him. And we are witnesses of all these things which he did both in the land of the Jews and in Jerusalem, whom they killed by hanging on a tree. Him God raised up on the third day and showed him openly, not to all the people, but to witnesses chosen before God by God, even to us who ate and drank with him after he arose from the dead. And he commanded us to preach to the people and to testify that it is he who was ordained by God to be judge of the living and the dead. To him all the prophets witness that through his name whoever believes in him will receive remission of sins. Okay, so he basically just recounts the history. Here he shows, what I was explaining earlier about God notices these people, who fear him. Okay. All right. So, and then the preaching of Jesus, and okay, the baptism of John. Here he goes over all that Jesus was doing in Israel. All the good works, miracles, and so on. And then the crucifixion and resurrection. And then how after that, before he ascended, he only appeared to certain people. And there's a reason for that. He even said it himself that the world won't see him until later. But this was before the ascension, of course. So, okay. And he commanded us to preach to the people and to testify that, it is he who was ordained by God to be judge of the living and the dead. To him, all the prophets witness that through his name, whoever believes in him will receive remission of sins. Okay, so he goes over this whole everything about the gospel, and then we see this happening in verse 44. While Peter was still speaking these words, the Holy Spirit fell upon all those who heard the word. And those of the circumcision who believed were astonished, as many as came with Peter, because the gift of the Holy Spirit had been poured out on the Gentiles also. For they heard them speak with tongues and magnify God. Then Peter answered, can anyone forbid water that these should not be baptized who have received the Holy Spirit just as we have? And he commanded them to be baptized in the name of the Lord. Then they asked him to stay a few days. Okay, so here we have a lot to unpack. Okay, so here Peter was still speaking the gospel to them, and we see the Holy Spirit fell upon all those who heard the word. They were open, again, they wanted to be saved, they were seeking, and they received this word of the gospel, and that's why the Holy Spirit fell on them. And so it was like another event like Pentecost. So anybody who says, oh, that was a one-time thing, again, they're dead wrong. This goes on throughout all of church history. And this was just another instance of it right here. So you can use this to disprove them and refute them that no, that wasn't the only time. It happened here as well. And it happens throughout church history. There are many cases of that. It's documented, so you just have to look into it. But anyway, so it can be individually or as a group, group like this. So it's still happening all throughout church history. Okay, so here's one place that happens. So this is, verse 44. Just remember that. Okay, all right, so that's what happens here. And he noticed it, and those of the circumcision, those are, they were the Jewish believers. They call them the circumcision. So who believed were astonished, so they were marveling at this, as many as came with Peter, because the gift of the Holy Spirit had been poured out on the Gentiles also. So that was the whole point of this. The door of this was open to the Gentiles as well. Salvation, the gospel, salvation, the Holy Spirit, everything. So this was a new milestone, and they marveled at it. And once you get saved like this, nothing else matters. It all goes away. Like they're on the same standing as the Jewish believers. There's no inferiority there. Okay, because it's about the Holy Spirit and this, gospel of salvation. That's the key right there. And everything else is, this is the top of the list right here. So anything else is like, either way, whatever, Okay, so, for they heard them speak with tongues and magnify God. Okay, so, again, like, that's what they observed. I mean, you can get another gift and it won't be evident that way at the time. It'll show up later. There are many examples of that. The gift of healing, for one thing, the gift of teaching, for another. But this was a quick, instant gift. If they use it right away, it's evident, it's manifesting, and they can see that. So they mention it, and a lot of people twist that, like I said, take it out of context. Not everybody gets this gift. Okay, so I went over that in earlier videos. So, all right, and they heard them magnifying God. So they saw, it was like they needed to see, and this was their proof to, the Jewish believers, like, yes, God has accepted and embraced them for salvation as well. Then Peter answered, can anyone forbid water that these should not be baptized who have received the Holy Spirit just as we have? So he acknowledges they received the Holy Spirit just as we have. Okay, God accepted them, the door was open to them. That's it. And he commanded them to be baptized in the name of the Lord. Then they asked him to stay a few days. So I'm sure this was for discipleship. But another important point here, can anyone forbid water that these should not be baptized who have received the Holy Spirit just as we have? I went over this. I mean, this is the end of chapter 10, but I will probably do 11 tomorrow. But I just want to go over this now. Different possibilities here for this. So, get out my trusty marker. Okay. And so we notice, how, again, I mean, water baptism doesn't save you. And like here, they were saved. They were baptized in, and I'm just going to abbreviate, Holy Spirit. They were saved and they were baptized in the Holy Spirit. They were obviously saved, okay? You don't get any more saved than that. And they were not yet water baptized. So they did not need water baptism to save them in order to get saved. Okay, it came later. They were water baptized after they got saved. Okay, so water baptism does not save. Okay, and there are different directions to look at this from. Like, okay, they didn't need to be water baptized in order to be saved because they were saved before they were water baptized. Okay, and water baptism, again, it doesn't save you, because, for instance, okay, you have people who are saved and then they get water baptized. And so, you have that, and then you have people that are saved, and for some reason they didn't get water baptized. So I'll just put not over here. For some reason they didn't get to it. Maybe they can't find a good church to get baptized or something, and they don't even know anyone who's a Christian to do this, but they're still saved. Okay, so you can have saved and water baptized, saved and not water baptized, and you can have unsaved and, of course, not water baptized, but you can also have water baptized. Okay, and they're still unsaved. Like, this doesn't save them. Okay, so you, again, don't need water baptism to be saved, but water baptism itself alone, like if you're not already saved, it won't save you. You can be water baptized and it won't save you. You're still unsaved. You need to become a Christian, and that's when you get saved. Water baptism alone won't help you. I mean, we see Christians who were water baptized and they're saved, and some who just they didn't have an opportunity yet, and they're still saved. We see people who were water baptized and they're not saved. I mean, it's so clear they're not saved. Water baptism doesn't save you. Doing that first won't change anything. And of course, those who are not water baptized, and then they're not saved. So there's that. But I mean, it's just like people hang on this now too. This water baptism. It's another false teaching that this is going to be do something special for you. It's not. It's just an outward show of it's an act of obedience. There may be some special benefit in it, yes, but it's not enough to save you. Okay, you need to, like it said, you have to believe before you're able to even be water baptized. So that has it in the right order. They put it in the wrong order. You can't even get water baptized until you believe. If you don't believe, it avails you nothing to get water baptized. And I'll write that here again. That verse is Acts 8:37. Okay, you have to believe before you can be water baptized. So it can't be more obvious. It's not going to do anything for you otherwise. So, okay, you can get saved without it, of course, because it won't save you. And just water baptism by itself will not save you, okay? There are some Bible verses that look a little tricky sometimes, but then they explain it a little more in context. And when we get there, I'll go over that. But trust me, the water baptism, you can't get saved by that. So don't hang on that. Okay, there are people, they think, oh, I'm okay. I was baptized as a tiny little infant and it won't help you anything. So don't trust in that. Okay, so that's it for chapter 10. And tomorrow I'll continue with 11. Okay, have a wonderful night. And I still have this cute little candle going in the Nice little roses over there. Okay, see you tomorrow.